don't think they can win with Joe Biden. I think the only way is to find a way for him to say, I'm not running, and to replace him at the Democratic convention in August, and hope to God that that gives him a shot. And I frankly can't see how he can recover from the kind of sentiment that is out there. It's not new, and it's only been made worse by the events of the last couple of weeks. President Trump has been seen as the stronger of the two men for over a year. And then on Saturday night, in that iconic moment when he struggles to his feet, pushes his way through a scrum of Secret Service agents in order to, with blood flowing down his face, raise a fist as an act of defiance and reassurance to the crowd. You saw how the crowd reacted that evening.
Longtime Republican strategist Karl Rove with that analysis yesterday on Fox Business. As the Republicans present a united front at their convention this week, Democrats remain fractured. A group of House Democrats want the DNC to delay its virtual roll call to select the party's presidential nominee. The DNC plans to hold the vote as early as July 21st, initially moving it up to ensure the party meets Ohio's deadline to certify the presidential ticket. But Ohio lawmakers changed that deadline, pushing it past next month's Democratic convention. Now, more than 20 Democrats have signed a letter saying the early virtual roll call is not necessary, citing growing concerns over the president's campaign.
You know,
and yet.
Yeah, no, this is what's so interesting. Mike Barnicle, I'm going to show you some polls here. Because, you know, my feeling, Mike, is if they just want to say that Joe Biden is too diminished and he needs to step aside, then just say that. But instead, they go, oh, the polls. You and I have heard this. Oh, the polls are so bad. He can't win. He can't win. It's impossible. There are 110, 111 days left in this election. At this point in 88, Michael Dukakis was what, 15, 16, 17 points ahead? At this point in 2016, Hillary Clinton was going on Saturday Night Live, laughing and mocking Donald Trump and talking about how lucky she was to have drawn Donald Trump as her Republican opponent. And everybody, but I'll say a few of us, said there was no way Donald Trump could win. No way. Everybody. Go back and look at the tape. In 2020, Joe Biden was supposedly up by 10, 12 points in Michigan and Wisconsin a couple of days beforehand, led me to saying I trust no polls. It ended up being very tight. In 22, we heard about the red wave that never materialized. I mean, it's such BS. I really want to use a stronger word. Everybody goes, oh, well, I was the only one that was saying there wasn't going to be a red wave. Really? No. Really? Oh, I knew Donald Trump was going to win in 26. Really? No, you didn't. No, you didn't, because we were mocked and ridiculed repeatedly for saying that Donald Trump could win in 2016. In 2022, everybody was talking about the red wave, and I just don't see it. Now we hear from Democrats on the inside, see also Obama supporters, saying there's no way he can win. He's down so low. It's all over. Well, here's the latest Morning Consult poll taken on Monday. Last week, before the tragic assassination attempt, Donald Trump was up by 2 points. On Monday, it's just a snapshot. Donald Trump up by 1 point. According to a single-day survey, Trump leads by 1 point among registered voters nationwide. That's about 2,000 plus registered voters, so a pretty good sample size. That's within the margin of error. In a poll conducted over 3 days last week, of course, Trump led by 2 percentage points. So it's a 1 point race. Again, just a snapshot. But here's the deal, everybody. If you're looking at this, don't look at the margins. Look at the fact that it's a tie. This race is tied. Another snapshot poll, this one conducted yesterday, also shows November's election up for grabs. In the latest Reuters Ipsos national survey, Donald Trump leads Joe Biden by 2 points, 43 to 41% among registered voters. Again, a tie. Now let's go, because people say, oh, well, in the battleground states, he's losing by 87 points. Oh, we must do something, David Axelrod says on CNN. Oh, there's no way he can win, says the Pod Bros. Oh, it's all over. Well, okay, so let's go to what is probably his weakest swing state, Georgia. A Fox 5 Atlanta and Insider Advantage survey has Trump leading by 3 points in Georgia over Joe Biden, 47 to 44% among likely voters in the swing state. That's, Mike, that's about as close as Georgia has been over the past several months. And in fact, a CBS poll that was out this weekend showed again a tie. It was a 2-point lead by Donald Trump over Joe Biden in Georgia, which again, I saw 6, 7, 8 points about a month ago. Now, let's look for a second at what's happened. Of course, we talked about the tragic assassination attempt and the tragic killings at his rally in Pennsylvania. We've talked about that. We've talked ad nauseum about Joe Biden turning in the worst presidential performance ever in the history of televised debates. Before that, these same people that are saying he must go were telling me he's going to be down 10 points. I have it on good authority that he's going to be down 10 points in all the polls that are going to be coming out. I have it on good authority. It ended up being like 3, down by 3 points. We had the Lester Holt interview. Everybody calling me, oh, well, that's the end. Did you see? He mumbled like Chewbacca at the end. He's just, that's the end. It's all over. We're not going to like Chewbacca. It's done. It's done. We had the press conference. Oh, he said President Putin instead of President Zelensky. Oh, he said Vice President Trump. It's over. It's done. People factored all this in, Mike. They factored it all in. Joe Biden, I got bad news for them and for Joe Biden. Joe Biden wasn't good at talking in 1987.
He has a stutter.
When he was humiliated and driven from the race in probably one of the most humiliating endings to a presidential campaign imaginable. 2008, not much better. The gaffes on the campaign trails, the things that made staff members go, ay, what's going on with this guy? So people know Joe Biden. They factored this in. People know Donald Trump. They factored this in. Now, all this could change in a week. Who knows? But right now, as we said yesterday, we live in a 46-46 country, not a 50-50 country. We live in a 46-46 country. And the Democrats have got either fish or cut bait. Like, if they can't drive Joe Biden from the race, they need to line up behind Joe Biden because there's no middle ground here. You're either united, a house divided against itself can't stand. You're either united or your side loses. They've got to make decisions fast. And all these stories about Nancy furiously going around trying to undermine Joe Biden, it's not working. I mean, I don't even know if that's true. We keep hearing about Barack Obama and all of Barack Obama's people quietly working behind the scenes to undermine Joe Biden. If they are,
that's not helpful.
It's not helpful, first of all. And secondly, it's not working with the rank and file base. After all of these historic moments, and Republicans are in Milwaukee, they know they're going to win. Just like, Karl Rove said Joe Biden can't win. I understand. He's turned in a terrible debate performance. He has trouble in interviews. He always has. But again, I want to see the polling that says that. I want to see the numbers that say that, because all I hear is, oh, there's a secret poll. Oh, I've looked at internals of candidates, and he's down by 87. Every public poll that's come out has this race tied, Mike, even after two of the most historic events in recent American political history.
Yeah. Joe, I don't know what to believe in terms of polls right now, given the volatility out there in this country. I mean, the country was truly shaken to its core over the weekend. That's a given. And each and every day, it seems something happens in everyone's lives that cause them to look at our politics and say, oh, geez, I'm going to stay away from that. But with regard to Joe Biden, I was watching him speak in Las Vegas yesterday, and he clearly is going back to an old, proven route for Democrats. He's talking about issues where people live and talking about what's going to happen if there's a change in administration, if the Trump administration, the Trump-Vance administration succeeds him, and the losses that people will endure, and losses in terms of what's going to happen to Social Security, what's going to happen to Medicare and Medicaid, what's going to happen to the civil service function in this society where independent people will go to work each and every day for the federal government, what's going to happen to clean air, clean water, food, regulatory agencies that protect the public and make the public lives more safe, allowed to live more safely because of rules and regulations that are put down. What's going to happen to billionaires? Are they going to become double billionaires or whatever they call themselves, trillionaires, when they make even more money? What's going to happen to the tax code with another tax cut provided by the Trump administration next January or February? What's going to happen to people's lives on a daily basis? How much is the ordinary American going to lose under an incoming Republican administration? People who live on the margins, people who live paycheck to paycheck, what's going to happen to their lives? Are they going to be better off under a Republican administration? A proven commitment to rich people in this country, proven, as opposed to a Biden administration and sort of an old combination of FDR, Harry Truman, JFK, LBJ stuff. What's going to happen to people? That's the question that Joe Biden has to answer. That's the question he was pushing yesterday in Las Vegas, and he didn't look bad.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.